Next, augmented reality and virtual reality have taken the entire tech domain by storm, and marketing has not been left untouched by its impact. And to tell us more about the way in which AR and VR can be utilized for building successful marketing strategies, we'd like to welcome Bonjean, Chief Creative Technologist at BUT Global, up to the stage.
Already. So my name is Bonjean, or Bonjean, as we say it in Belgium. I am the Chief Creative Technologist of BUT. That title is on purpose because I like to confuse people. People always wonder what that is exactly. I could have called it, yes?
Sorry, our system just crashed. We're just rebooting it. So
no worries, okay. All right, so the system just crashed. I'm losing time here, by the way. No, it's fine. It's all right, it's all right, it's all right. So while the system is rebooting, I'll skip through a few of these already. So basically, the subject I'm going to talk about is about AR and VR in your marketing strategy. And I'm actually not so much going to talk about the strategy itself, because I think we're all marketing people here, otherwise you wouldn't be here. I think everybody can make up their own strategy. What I would like to point out is a bit what we are good at, which is actually the blend between content technology, the medium, and to actually explain you a little bit about what our opinion is about if you should already use AR and VR, yes or no. I'll take a step back first and tell you a bit about our company. So our company is Better Use of Technology. We've been in this region since 13 years. We are pretty well known. Most people know us because we created the Jitex Etisalat stand for the last 6 years. I don't know, is anybody, how many of you people live around here actually? All right, so you live in Dubai, so it's about like 40% of the crowd. So who went to Jitex ever? Anybody went to Jitex? Okay, so 1, 2 people, okay. So 3, all right. So Jitex is a consumer, is like CES in Las Vegas. It's a consumer electronics exhibition. It's one of the biggest shows in Dubai. And oh, I see my slides coming by there now. And so on that event, the biggest stand is Etisalat, the local telecoms provider, and that's one of the things that we do basically. But it kind of got us a bit of a name the last 13 years because of that. And we're there, I think. Or we're not there. Yes, we are. There we go. All right. Let me take this thing. I'll skip through. Thank you. Thank you. That's me. So I already told you that. So what I was saying, what I was talking about is actually this. This is actually what put our name on the market around here. This was this year's, or last year, no, this year's still, 2019 October Jitex basically. So what we do is we create marketing material in an interactive way. We create user experiences that haven't been done before. For example, like this. So we work together with a lot of brands that are creating innovation, that have new technologies that haven't been used before. These gloves are brand new. They're a prototype. They're about $20,000 per piece. So there's some of these things basically that we do, and that kind of gives you a reputation as being at the cutting edge of technology. And once you actually end there at that cutting edge of technology, it's very hard to still compete with you, because now all the bigger clients basically ask us to come and do their shows. That's the result of it. So obviously this is a mixture of technology, and the presentation now is about AR and VR, which is part of that mix. And let me, yeah, all right. So when they asked me actually to talk about AR and VR, I said, yes, sure, I can do that about the market, should I use it in a marketing strategy? But for us, that question is always like, we're one of these annoying companies, right? A client comes to us and they say like, I want VR, AR, and then we always go like, why? Yeah. We're one of these guys that don't just sell stuff, what people are asking for. So that's why what I would like to explain in my presentation is more that it's not just the technology, but that it's a mixture of certain parameters. But to start off on the right foot, we did so many presentations the last couple of years about VR and AR and MixR. There's a mixed crowd here in the audience also. Who knows the difference between these three items? Nobody, okay. So that's why I put it in there, so everybody understands and we're all on the same, foot talking here, we're on the same level, right? So basically, there was, these are kind of like the devices that represent these three technologies a bit, and I'll go to each one very shortly just to explain so we're all clear what it is, right? So we have augmented reality. Augmented reality is not new at all. We were doing augmented reality, I think the first time was a campaign for General Electric in, beat me somewhere, 1998 or something, I think. Yeah, so the technology is not new at all. What did change is that the enabling technology changed. So like this tablet that she's holding now, that did not exist. But we've been doing augmented reality for years and years with regular cameras and with laptops and all kinds of things, basically. So the only difference that actually changed with AR is the devices that you can use to do it. But what does AR mean? AR means augmented reality, means actually you augment what is already there. So you add something to the environment. So in this case, for example, that IKEA chair. And how do they do this? Because this guy puts the IKEA catalog on the floor, which works as a marker. So where that catalog is, this thing will pop up. Yeah? The technology is evolving these days. It can pop up anywhere, basically. But that's basically what the definition of AR is. Right? So you add something to the environment. What is mixed reality? So mixed reality is a term coined by our friends at Microsoft. I don't know why. I suppose I like it because it confuses people. It confuses people a lot. But basically their definition is actually that it is like augmented reality, but it mixes with the reality. With that they mean, and this video is chosen on purpose, it will start again. Let me show you again when it starts. See this grid on this table here, right? That's actually because they're illustrating that in mixed reality, the device that you use to see the environment understands its environment. And so the big difference with augmented realities, I'm sure that everybody has an app that they've ever seen with augmented reality, like I know, there's lots of them. But basically, it will actually just put it on top of, I'll look at my app on that wall, it will be on the wall, right? But it doesn't know that there is a wall. So the difference with mixed reality is that it understands the environment and it can place objects within that environment in the right location. So in this case, on this table, for example, the bike is on the table because the device knows that there is a table with a surface to place something on. So that is actually the difference between AR and MR. And then obviously we have virtual reality. And virtual reality, I'm sure everybody has seen, and I'm sure you've all experienced it. It's not new anymore. It seems to be stalling a little bit. I can go on for hours about how effective companies are with selling the hardware for it. They're all failing in a short sentence. But it is a very, very interesting technology, obviously. So the difference with VR is that you do not have the real reality anymore, but everything is actually virtual. What makes us different from other companies is that we do not basically use this technology just for the sake of the technology. It's not because there is VR on the market that we'll say like, oh, let's create virtual reality now, let's do some stuff with it, right? And that is actually what we have to educate our clients in a lot. People, they come to us and say, like, I want VR, virtual reality, but the question is actually why and how and what, right? And so what happens in our company, for example, is that when the first VR set came on the market, which I'll go back actually a bit. You know, this is the HTC. Which one is this? Yeah, this is the Vive, right? Oh. And there we go. So this is the Vive. So basically, when this came on the market, any other company would say like, oh, let's try to experiment with this stuff. We also did that. But then the other thing we also said is like, why do they have these weird controllers, right? Because for us as technical people, that might be okay. But for the general audience, if you do an advertising or marketing campaign to a general audience, you need to get your message across. If people come into your activation in a mall or whatever, and they have these goggles on, and your message is in there, and you're telling a story, but you're having trouble, you know, maneuvering around in the content and whatever, then your story will get lost, right? You won't get the message over because people are messing about with these devices. So, and this is the kind of stuff that our company thinks about. So we then actually go on and immediately start to think, like, how can we get rid of the controller? So this is an example of something we did, like, I don't know, 4 years ago or something, which was like a virtual reality without controllers. And now, actually recently, and actually today even, or 2 days ago, I think, the Oculus Quest, which is one of the wireless devices, headsets now, released an upgrade where you can actually do this. So hands-free, or let's say controller-free virtual reality. So they are getting there actually, but it's something that we've been doing for quite some time because we think that it helps effective communication because of that. Right? So we're trying to get rid of that learning curve a bit. Another example of how we are always experimenting with new technologies and trying to make use of it. This was in 2007. We for about 3 months we had the record of the world's biggest interactive video wall. Adobe beat us 3 months later in New York by doing the same basically, or something similar. But that was when the Microsoft Kinect came on the market. Our engineers actually hacked it before there was an SDK, and they already started doing things with it to create a memorable digital experience, basically. So, you know, the Kinect can follow you around, and the wall kind of responds on what you're doing, basically. So, this memorable experience, that's a bit what I want to talk about also, right? Because that's the question to ask. I mean, if you guys ask us like, okay, should we use VR and AR in our marketing, yes or no? It's a difficult question. I wouldn't say like, if you should use is not the question to ask. The question to ask is more, how should you use this? And that's why we put this equation on the screen. You know, what plus how is an experience. That's what I want to explain in the next 5 minutes, hopefully. I'm going to speed through it. So what makes a memorable digital user experience? Yeah? There's lots of parameters, but in the core, it is exactly that. If one of these parameters is faulty, then it could result in a bad experience. Yeah? When, for example, the message or the story is bad, no matter how you do that, it will not stick. If the medium is wrong, you know, it will not stick either. And that's basically a bigger issue. So what happens a lot, and that's the question that you need to ask when it comes to AR and VR especially, is like, are we using the wrong technology, or is the technology being used wrong? That's a potential. Yeah. It might be difficult. This thing again, I'll just do that to confuse you. But basically, I'll illustrate this. So in this, for example, this is a sample of a story of a few years ago, where people were a local company. I'll throw the name out there. So ADNOC, the oil company of Abu Dhabi, they hired a French agency to create a Kinect experience. Now this is what you see, what a Kinect sees, right? So a Kinect is an infrared device, and this is what it sees. Now that's how it understands how the environment looks like, and this is the same also that mixed reality works. So a mixed reality headset, a Microsoft HoloLens, sees the world exactly like that also. All these small little dots. It's called a point cloud, and it will actually create the environment, and that's how it's able to place things in there. Now, the problem with this is that it's infrared. What these guys on that event did is actually they installed it. At night it worked all very well and fantastic. These guys got on a plane back to France on the route. But the day after, there was a cupola in that thing, like, you know, with a window, and the sun shone right on that installation. Now, this is infrared. The sun is way brighter than infrared, so their installation didn't work for one bit anymore, right? So that's an example of using the wrong technology, because you've got a technology company that tried to sell something or use something and actually wasn't aware of how it worked and basically failed in delivering it, right? The opposite of that is like using a technology wrong is also a common story, especially in this region. I get like once every 2 weeks minimum, I get a call for a hologram. So the phone goes and I pick up and people ask me like, Wim, I need a hologram. It's the same question like asking I need VR and AR, so I say like, why? Yeah? So why do you need a hologram? Well, because it looks cool. Like, yeah, but it doesn't always look that cool. Now, this picture, for example, it's a bit out of place because it's too big on this screen, but actually this was a hologram on a stand, I think of Do, I can't remember where I took it actually. And a hologram is basically a technique of reflecting a 2D image on a piece of reflection foil or glass or whatever. So it gives you a depth, but the only reason that a hologram looks holographic is because there is depth behind it. It's an illusion, it's an optical illusion. So, because this is a black background, nobody ever noticed that this was a hologram. Everybody just thought it was a TV screen. So these guys paid a lot of money for a TV screen, which was a hologram on paper, but actually in reality, nobody saw it was a hologram. Plus, besides that, this character was actually like that tall, so it looks like a small midget talking on television, basically. So it was a complete failure. But this, for example, is using a technology wrong. It's not the wrong technology because they actually implemented it correct, but they just use it in a very wrong way. For example, this is my button doing? Yeah. All right. So this is also a hologram, right? But this is used in a correct way because what they do is they put people behind a holographic screen, so they create depth. And it works, and like these people think like, oh yeah, it's really a hologram, right? So this is correct holographic effect. The other one was like a waste of money. Yeah. So why am I showing all these things basically? Why am I showing you failed technology and non-failed technology? It's actually because I want to point out that if companies, if companies in general, if we create experiences and use technology that is not implemented in the right way, so if you use VR and AR and it's not really ready for what you're doing with it, that it can actually, get a negative feedback, right? And actually, on Monday, I was talking to somebody here. I don't know if the person is in the room, but I was talking to somebody here about using virtual reality. And because they asked, "What are you going to talk about?" I said, "Virtual reality and augmented reality." And he said he didn't like virtual reality because he did it a couple of times and it sucked. And that's exactly what I mean, right? I mean, like, virtual reality does not suck, right? But what it did with this person, it put a precedent, right? Because he saw this and he said it sucked. So he had a bad experience about this, right? And that is actually, that's a problem because he put a precedent. And now he suddenly said like, oh, I don't want VR anymore because I saw it was bad, right? But that's not always true. And that's the difficulty and the risk you're running if you use technology wrong or if you use the wrong technology, basically. And obviously, it's not that easy because the problem that we have is like what I just said, is that the clients, they come and they say like, I need a hologram, I want VR, I want this, I want that. Is everybody's always asking for the wow effect, right? Like these guys like, wow, you need a wow. You know, if we have a wow effect, then we can engage with people, then we get huge numbers, good results, that's what we need, right? So because we hear that term so many times, wow effect, and I need a wow experience, whatever, I thought like, let's analyze wow a little bit. And I went online and I actually, I mean, I started doing that. I'm a bit anal in that way, actually. If people ask me, you know, things like, I want this, and I always like, why? I try to understand why they want certain things. So now for the wow, I heard so many times wow. So now I have this thing that I looked up. So if you look up the term wow online, you get World of Warcraft, which is obviously nothing to do with it. So you scroll down a little bit and then you get to actually a person called Tom Peters, who was a business management practices guru in the 90s, and he termed the coin wow factor. Right? And where does he get it from? He said like, it's the life-changing power of experiencing profound awe. And I thought like, he just turned it around. He didn't say like, oh, he said, wow, something like that. But he wasn't the only person working with that, because there's companies like NASA, for example, that are actually working with the term wow. If anybody of you knows that. But so basically what they do is they coined this term a couple of years ago called the overview effect. If astronauts go to the space agency, to the space ISS in orbit, and they look at the world, apparently they are a changed person when they come back. And they're all talking about it. And it's such a profound psychological effect that NASA actually called that wow effect the overview effect, from seeing the world from far away, basically. And that actually, the reason I'm saying that is because, you know, it's probably right to assume that if a person has a wow experience, right, in relationship to a certain brand, that it will resonate emotionally and that they will actually change their view in a positive way. And that's what we want as marketeers and as advertisers, right? So the client is perfectly in its right to actually ask for a wow experience. Yeah, they should ask for that. They should ask for the magic that, you know, bring that magic, to have these parameters together, right? The profound awe, like, oh, this is, I enjoyed this. It was a great experience. But this magic, so again, I was like, let's dig a bit deeper, because what is this magic then that they're after? What is the magic they're after? And then probably I come back to something that a lot of you people know, which is this. It's not chemistry, but it is chemistry, but it's called dopamine. And that's where actually this ow and wow effect comes from. It is dopamine. Dopamine is just an organic chemical that is released in your brain and your neurons. You know, it's like a reward and motivational system. So if you get a shot of dopamine in your brain that releases it automatically, you'll say like, yeah, that was cool, right? So, and that's what we want. But the thing is that you get that with a lot of stuff. You know, if you advertise the right way, people come, they buy a pair of shoes. Dopamine, right? People have sex, dopamine. You receive a like on Facebook, dopamine. Yeah. So it's all this thing, and people get a bit like addicted to this whole stuff, right? So it's a rewarding kind of thing. It's a bit like, or people that check their phone every 1 minute, same thing, right? It goes on like that. Now, the danger with this dopamine and this wow effect and all these things, right, is what I actually previously said, is like, you know, what if this stuff backfires? So, because you can introduce a new technology like AR and VR, but what if you don't do this correctly, right? Then you will end up with the guy I was talking to on Monday actually saying like, okay, this is not what I want. Yeah, I mean, I had an experience and I hated it basically. Is my guy, oh, he's not gonna jump, is he? You're missing the backfire effect. Oh well, it's bad luck. So what if the experience is not good, right? What do we do then? So that brings us actually to the importance of this experience and of the message that comes with it. So there's a guy called Marshall McLuhan in '64. He coined a phrase. I'm going to paraquote here because I'm, where to say. He says that the medium equals the message itself. What does he mean by that? Right? He actually means that content versus technology. He means that VR versus the content that goes in it, it's actually one and the same thing. You cannot really split them up. And that actually comes a bit to the same thing. Is like if you look at things like YouTube, for example, right? What impacts your life mostly? Is it YouTube in itself, or is it all the videos that are on YouTube? Is it all the content that is there? I mean, who thinks that YouTube is the one that actually impacts your life most? Who thinks that the videos on YouTube impact your life most? There's more people thinking that. But that's the question, right? Isn't it the experience of streaming video that actually impacts your life? It's the combination between the technology that YouTube gave us and all the content that we're generating on it, right? It's that blend between the two, and it is not either or, because you can't do one without the other, actually. So the packaging of the message is important as the message itself, basically. And that's where we get back to our equation from the beginning, right? It's this what plus a how creates an experience, right? So the experience is actually what you need to look at. It's not about the technology, it's not about message, but it's the experience that both of them create. I have a few slides here that I'm going to skip because it's taking too long otherwise. But basically, because you're all marketeers, so you should know this. Why is the experience important? Because we live in an experience economy, right? This slide actually, I can tell a whole story about it, but it's very simple. Commodity, product, service, experience, right? That's a very good coffee example. But you can apply this to everything, basically. So we used to sell beans, and then some guy started packaging it, and you pay for the packaging. And then somebody started making it, and you pay for the making of it. But actually now, Starbucks just charges you extra because you've got a nice sofa and a cool environment. So you're actually paying for the experience, but your coffee is still the same bean, and it costs the same bean also for Starbucks. Not for you, obviously. So that's why this experience is important, because we live in this experience economy. And why is it important to have a good experience? Is because we have two sorts of self. We have one which is a experiencing self, and we have one which is a memorizing self. People create memories of certain experiences. If you have a bad experience, you'll create a worse memory than if you have a good experience, right? So that's why the experience is important. I'm going to skip through these a bit. All right. So I've been blathering on and on about the experience, so you kind of can get the message that I think that's very important. So what I did is, like a couple of years ago, well, not a couple of years ago, like 10, 12 years ago, we coined this formula that we work in our company with to create a right experience, and we call it the triple E4 method. Right? So it's basically based out of these three. There is engage. You have to engage with your audience. And that's where the trap comes. I'll explain later. You have to educate your audience. That's your message. That's a message that goes in there, right? And you have to do it in an entertaining way, because that's how you get the good experience, and your memory will be a positive memory, right? So this equation basically is how we create content internally and how we create user experiences, by doing a blend between these and trying to find the balance. And the pitfall is in the first one, the engagement. Most people and most companies do not look past the engagement, because it's easy, right? If I want to engage with a person, I say like new technology, virtual reality or augmented reality, yeah, let's do that. Because people is like, oh, VR, AR, woohoo, let's try this out, it's gonna engage with me, it's gonna engage with me. But that's the thing, it doesn't mean that that's the correct one, and it might actually not have the right educational message in there and not be brought in an entertaining way, and you fail in getting to your point, basically. So this blend is very important, actually. We can talk offline about this if you're interested to know more about this. So coming back to what is, you know what's happening? There's no videos playing for some reason anymore. Are there? Can you guys press play? Does it do it or not? It does a little bit, or not. Did your system crash? No, you have to press play. Play. It's like that button here, this one. Your mouse is there. All right, this is supposed to be a showcase video of a blend of technologies, amongst which is virtual reality and augmented reality. It's actually a showcase of something we did in the beginning of the year. It's a visitor center for the UAE Space Agency in Abu Dhabi. And it has a lot of user experiences in there, with the right blend, obviously, of this formula of the EEE method. Scrubbing through it works. I'll skip to the next slide. It's fine. It's fine. Oh, there we go. That solved itself nicely. All right. So what is unique about our company? We're about 80 people worldwide. Is that we have so many people that know all this technology and that understand the blend. So we have engineers, we have programmers, we have storytellers, we have all these people together, which allows us to create these kind of experiences where you actually have the whole package together. And that's not always that easy. And so as you can see, like we have this is like a corporate presentation where people, the VIP comes in, they get like an introduction. They have like a signature kiosk where people can create their own universe. It gets added to the big universe. There's an AI. The AI tells you the story of how they plan on going to Mars in 2070. So there's a lot of these things, and then obviously there's also virtual reality involved in the back of this area. I mean, if the video continues, you'll see there's a multifunctional room, and we created the world's first holodeck. And we did not invent that. No, we stole the name from Star Trek, obviously, but we did do it. So we have this new technology which allows us to do multiplayer virtual reality. At a rate that nobody else can for the moment. So there's we can have hundreds of users in one room, basically, doing virtual reality. I'll let this play a bit. Now, if we go back to the original subject, right? So you can ask me okay, should we use virtual reality or augmented reality? So this again, by the way, this is a VR setup where we use hands-free stuff. So there's a person actually using his own hands, putting stuff together in virtual reality. So everything has its use, right? And that's the thing. If you ask me should we use VR, AR in our campaigns, yes or no? I think, of course you should, right? if by all means use it, right? If it's the right opportunity, and if it's the right environment, and if it's the right message that goes into it. But do not try to shove stuff into a box that doesn't fit. That's the whole idea, right? And for AR, for example, if you go towards the mixed reality, for example, there's devices on the market like HoloLens. They are by no means a production-ready device. Yeah? Microsoft themselves actually say, like, we make them because we want companies to invest in it and work on the future. But if you're taking a device like that into a training center or into an event or whatever, we've done that multiple times, it does not survive. Yeah? I mean, we have not have one HoloLens that lived longer than 3 months in a training center, because they're just not made for it. They're made for experimenting. And they've got a new one out, it's the same thing actually. But is there potential? Of course there is a lot of potential, especially in the augmented reality world, right? This is the future that obviously we're all gonna love. Some of you might have seen this movie, I think it's still fantastic. So this is the future of augmented reality. If and when Apple probably, or Google maybe, comes out with a pair of glasses like this that allows you to see the augmented reality in front of you without having to walk around with your mobile phone like that, then maybe this is the future that we're getting at. So obviously for the advertising crowd, that is it's fantastic to have like that. I'm not sure if everybody will enjoy that, but anyway. But there is obviously a lot of potential, and so that is why we do think that you need to invest in it and you need to work on it. And the biggest difference actually between all this content that we have in VR and AR and all the content that we had before VR and AR is the aspect of 3D. And with that, what do I mean with that? Is oh, this is a video that's not playing again. Can you play this, if possible? So basically, the biggest difference is the content that is created. The whole VR, AR world now needs 3D content, right? You can do 2D content, but 2D content is a bit boring in VR and in AR. But 3D content is not lost. And that's where the biggest difference comes from. We used to create content, and a lot of it was pre-rendered and rendered out as a 2D movie and all these things. And that was not reusable. Everything you create now in a real-time 3D platform is reusable. So, for example, this is a small video of a presentation we did for TCOM, I think. But so the reason of the video is actually to show that the guy is now doing the virtual reality. You see, this is what he sees in his goggles, right? But this guy is doing the same stuff without the goggles on his face, but just on the screen, right? He's doing exactly it's the same presentation, same content, without goggles on a big screen. So you can easily invest in creating content for a VR, AR platform without having to really use it in that. This, again, is the same application on a touchscreen, right? And that's the biggest difference, is that the change of platform that is being used for content creation for VR and AR. That's why you can actually invest in it and use it. But whether you have to use it, yes or no, that's something I leave up to you guys. So I think I made my point clear. Yeah, first the what, then the how, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions from the floor at this point? I don't like technology when it goes wrong. I feel like the guys from the IT crowd. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Yes, we've got a couple of questions down here.
Yes.
Who wants to go first? Fight it out.
I can't hear you. No, because your microphone is not on.
Guys? No.
Hello.
Yes, there we go.
Hi, my name is Atul. We do work a little bit on the AR, VR side, and my question is that the AR, VR experience is still predominantly dependent on the hardware side of it. You still need very expensive hardware to deliver that experience. Some of the things that we speak about, or rather we see, is AR being more popular because you can deliver it using a mobile platform. Or the example that you showed with the glasses and just on the TV, because TV is even more popularly available. So how do you see the content being delivered to the masses in future, given that it's still hardware oriented?
Very valid question. There's multiple answers to this actually. I don't think VR and AR is actually defined by the hardware that is there. I don't think that's true. It depends on how you want your user experience to be. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. So you have wired and wireless VR headsets, for example. Yeah? A wired VR headset, quality-wise, is better. Yeah? But you're tethered to a wire, which makes it annoying to move around, annoying to deploy, right? A wireless headset might have a little bit of a quality drop, but it's freedom all over, yeah? So from a user experience perspective, there is a balance that you need to make, and that's obviously a decision I cannot make, but that is basically where you weigh off, like, what do you think is more experience? To have a person freely walk around and maybe experience this stuff, or to have him tethered to it because you want him to get the quality out, right?
No, when the question was slightly different. I was trying to say that the experience is still tethered to a hardware. You need a hardware to consume that experience, whether it's a mobile phone or it's a TV or some kind of a halo lens or whatever it is. And given that there is a cost attached to something like that, in future, I'm sure it's evolving, in future, how do you see this technology going to the masses? Because you cannot expect your consumers to buy halo lenses.
No, you're completely right, yeah. But that's why this video, one of the last videos I showed, the future of AR, and that's the thing. Also, by the way, people think that it's not going anywhere for the moment because it's not in the news anymore, but that is not true, yeah? There is a lot of development within these devices, but obviously a goggle is a goggle, and so you don't really see it change anymore on the outside, but every version that comes out on the market now can do more and more stuff, which makes it more user-friendly, faster, smarter, all these things. So there is actually a lot going on. But there is no mass adoption, right? That's what you're saying. And that's true. And I don't think actually that mass adoption is something that will just happen like that for virtual reality, by the way. Yeah? Virtual reality, most of the projects that we do now and that are planned for the next months and whatever is in training, is for user experiences where they want people to be in the situation. And that's easy to grasp. But for a commercial perspective, you say like, so we did campaigns, for example, for I don't know, Marlboro and whatever, I'm not supposed to say that, I guess, but like cigarette brands and stuff like that, right? And they do it with mobile phones for augmented reality, for example. And obviously, that does not have the return that they want, right? Because again, one, there is the issue of people not downloading apps anymore, which is one, right? There is the evolution of the platforms on Apple and Android that are evolving and that allow you to do augmented reality just with your mobile phone in your browser, for example. But that then again does not give you the same experience like with an app because it can't handle it. So there's this, and when we do these campaigns for these brands, they're always disappointed by the numbers, right? Because people, honestly, everybody's seen it now. Everybody's seen an AR once somewhere, and it's not that excited anymore. So my guess is that in terms of VR, I think the VR industry is there already and will keep growing, but it is not an advertising mass adaptable solution, right? Might come if the headsets get even lighter and whatever. But augmented reality is. And in the end, probably VR will be there too. And why I say that is, I don't know if you've ever used a HoloLens. So on a HoloLens, they have a few programs on HoloLens where the HoloLens is actually used as virtual reality. You know, because you've got full screen on. If you have full screen on, you don't see through it anymore, right? So the mass adoption of this will probably not happen of AR for sure before somebody brings this on the market. And so Apple is working on this. Huawei is working on this. We've seen prototypes. We have prototypes in the office from Sony and from Huawei. We work pretty closely with Huawei on these things. They are working on it, but they are still not as nice looking and light as this. But they're getting there, right? If you ask me when will this come on the market, a year, 2 years, maybe. It is close. We are getting really close to this. Will the first models be very tiny? I don't know, right? Will we have like lenses that you put in? Probably too. Maybe what, 10 years from now? But we are going to get there, obviously, and that's why everybody's so excited about AR, because it is going to change our lives in a way that we've never seen before. Yeah, I mean, it's going to create a complete new way of living, basically, right? One of the things that people do not expect, but I always tell, that's why companies like Huawei and a lot of them are actually suddenly becoming in the visor of companies like Samsung and LG, because once these glasses come on the market and you have AR everywhere, every screen manufacturer will be completely out of business within a year. Yeah? Because I can have a screen anywhere, so I don't need this screen anymore, right? In 5 years from now, we will stand here and there will be no screen and you will all wearing glasses, right? And my content will be playing wherever, maybe on the whole, the ceiling, everywhere. There's a guy standing next to me. I'm not here. It's like somebody virtual doing that, right? So that is really the future. There is no doubt about that. We are doing mock-ups now already, faking that technology, but it is coming. So, but in terms of mass adoption, I don't think it will happen before that, despite what everybody does. Because, for example, Google Maps brought out this new version that you can actually walk around with your phone, right, on the street. But who does that, right? That's not a user experience. You don't see people walk on the street like that. Oh, let me wait. That doesn't happen, right? So. So it will depend. I mean, in that way, it is obviously a hardware item because we need to have the hardware to do it. But it is coming, and everybody because I have millions of discussions about this. Everybody's always like, no, I will never wear these glasses. I knew people also that in 2000 said like, no, I will never get a smartphone. I mean, like, it's the same story. I mean, like, it's progress. You can't avoid progress. That's not happening. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Partly it does, yes. Thank you.
Is the next one really, really quick? Because we are desperately over time. Is it a quick question that's going to get a quick answer?
No, I will pass. I was actually going to share some good experience from the sports industry about the whole AR/VR, because I worked on the world's first smart arena, which was built for NBA in the US, Sacramento Kings, and where the whole AR/VR experience was really good, but the problem was about wearables. We are also working on we are also experiencing in IPL, the Indian Premier League, which is one of the biggest cricket league in the world, where the fan zones are coming up with their own glasses and people are getting the fan experience with the whole AR/VR. And players are now getting ready to train, get into mindset before even getting onto the pitch. To experience the whole thing. So my question, I think it was partly the same question about the hardware restriction. And one question, the second part of the same question was about marketing, because it sometimes creates the conflict. If suppose, if you're doing a tournament and the tournament has a particular sponsors inside the field and a fan zone which is showing the VR, and the inside stadia, the experience that gets sold, a different marketing branding gets sold there. So there's a conflict also that come in. So from the marketing perspective, how do you avoid this conflict? Is something that you have thought of, if you got my question right?
Yeah, I understand what you mean. So I think in the future there will be a big battle for this going on, actually. So what you're pointing out is the fact, like, are we going to have, when this future arrives, and like what you said, like, there is progress and all these glasses and whatever, are we going to have like personalized content in there, or are we going to get bombarded like that movie that I showed, right? And yeah, I mean, that is a bit of a question, but I think there's going to be a big war going out, because obviously there will be a commercial version, and that will be companies that actually will have advertisements on every building, right? But I'm also sure from a perspective, from a user, that privacy is still a thing there, that you'll be able to turn these things on and off, right? The question is, and that's where I think where the war between the big advertising companies and everything will work, like that stadium that you're saying, right? If I allow my people in the stadium, right, you can come and watch this game, but if you want to watch it, you know, with only your personal stuff on there and not all my advertising, maybe you'll have to pay more, yeah? Because I own the stadium, so I want to have that thing in there. So there's going to be a new, like, a bit, I think, how Google in the 90s came out as being the victor of the online advertising. I think we'll have a new localized-based advertising war happening in the near future, actually.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.